up. Show him the sweatshirt. I can.
Hi, Barbie.
Well, thank you guys. Congratulations. And Margot, this all starts with you, I believe. What first gave you the idea that a Barbie movie might be worth pursuing, and then you had to get a lot of people on board, starting with Mattel and Greta Gerwig, and then these fine folks. Just take us back to the beginning.
I shall. First of all, can I just ask, who here just saw the movie for the first time? Wow, what do you think? That's so fun. Yeah, I have notes. I hope it was fun. Yeah, the journey started more than 5 years ago. I knew that the property was around, perhaps going to be a movie, perhaps not, and I kind of thought, wow, if the rights ever become available, I'm going to go after it, because it's such a globally recognized, I mean, the word itself is just known, and people have memories associated with Barbie, good or bad, all around the world. And I thought, wow, it's a huge opportunity and terrifying. A lot of ways to do a Barbie movie wrong, but it did seem like a really big, exciting opportunity. And yeah, we had to convince Mattel, of course, to let us, make it. And at the time, we were a much younger production company, so that was, a bit of a sell. But they got on board, and I said I wanted to go to Greta Gerwig. We set it up at Warner Brothers, went after Greta. Greta said, yes, just one condition, I want to write it with Noah. And we were like, brilliant. And then that process began. And no one saw the script until they fully completed the script. So not Warner's, not Mattel, not me. And I read it and thought, it's so brilliant, and it's so sad that this will never get made, because they're never going to let us make this movie. But they did. They were all exceptionally brave. And then, of course, Greta and Noah had written everyone's names into the script. So it said Barbie Margot, it said Ken Ryan Gosling, it said America. Well, actually, no, you were Gloria in the script, because the Barbies and Kens were all written in. So everyone the rest of it was manifested literally on the page to become the movie it is.
Now, Greta initially was not also left to direct it, right? They were writing it, but how did that shift, that she would also be directing?
Well, I wanted her to direct from the beginning. I think she wanted to get that first step out of the way, and then I think once they had written it, she was like, oh, I can't let anyone else direct this. And likewise, I hadn't committed to acting in it, only because I wanted her and Noah to write the script they needed to write, and if I wasn't the right person for the role, no hard feelings, sort of thing. So I was just on board as a producer, and she said, no, we've written it for you. We went with it.
So Ryan, my understanding from Greta is that she was convinced that you were great for Ken from the very beginning, but that it took a little bit of time for you to come around to that. What was going on in your mind about playing this gentleman?
Thank you for calling him a gentleman. It was such an incredible script. It was undeniable, but it did occur to me that this might be the hardest role ever, because how do you approach playing a 70-year-old crotchless doll that nobody cares about? I mean, there's no research material for that. There's no documentaries you can watch. There's no one you can shadow that could tell you what that might be like. You're on your own. But the upside of that eventually is that no one can tell you you're doing it wrong. Well, the internet told me I was doing it wrong. And Margot, of course, and Greta could have told me. Sometimes your eyes told me I was doing it wrong, but you never officially said it. So, it was a process, but I realized just how well observed. Barbie landed in my house at the same time, the Barbie the doll, and also the script, and my kids were sort of playing with Barbie and not playing with Ken. And I did see him out in the backyard, face down in the dirt. And I took a picture of it and I sent it to Greta, and I was like, his story should be told.
Now, I guess that also makes me want to ask, did any of you grow up with Barbie yourself, or Ken? America, you?
No. To be honest, I was not a Barbie girl. It was kind of unattainable to me. It was very expensive, and we couldn't afford Barbie dolls and all the accoutrement. I didn't necessarily feel represented in that world. Barbie's, she's been around a long time, and sometimes she's been ahead of the curve, and sometimes she's been behind the curve, and so when Greta called to say I wrote a Barbie script, like, hear me out, I was compelled because I knew Margot and Greta were at the head of it, and they're brilliant, talented, deep, interesting women, and I was so curious to see what they would do with it. And by the time I got to the end of the script, I was a Barbie girl, and I was invested and felt like, wow, like, of all the versions of a Barbie movie that we could get in 2022 or 2023, like, I'm so glad this is the one we get, and that it's taking the opportunity to include more of us who haven't historically seen ourselves represented in that world. And so it was, for me, such a no-brainer. I was a convert by the end.
And just for the record, Margot and Ryan, Barbies as a child?
Not really for me
No?
either, but I just felt kind of, I don't know, indifferent. She wasn't high on my priority list. My mum was exceptionally surprised when I told her I was going to play Barbie. She was like, wow, I couldn't even get you to wear a dress when you were a kid. So I didn't see this coming either.
Right. Well, how early on was it clear the degree to which this was going to be musical? I mean, you guys, there's choreographed dancing, which must take a lot of work. There's musical performance, singing performances. And I mean, also, maybe arguably the greatest soundtrack of a movie ever, with Billie Eilish, Phineas, Dua Lipa, Lizzo, you could go on and on. And so I guess I just wondered how that was presented to you guys from the start in terms of what Greta was envisioning.
I mean, we talked about the music even in the pitch to the studio initially. We said it was going to be, it was going to feel like a big dance party, and that always kind of was the criteria. But I'll let Ryan talk about some of his more musical moments, because they were definitely, in my opinion, the highlight of the film.
It sort of evolved, right? I mean, it although it felt like it always should be there, I guess, I had a terrible idea at one point where I thought Ken should dance his feelings. And I told that to Greta, and she was like, okay, well, I'll work on that with the choreographer. And then we did. I had this thought that I should dance with my mink, like I would have a duet between me and the mink, and we'd be fighting. And we worked on it for a few days, actually, and then the choreographer got a text, and she said, the mink dance is dead. And I was like, what do you mean the mink dance is dead? She said, they killed it. And I said, who killed the mink dance? And she said, I can't say who, but it came from the top. And I was like, okay. And then they were like, but Mark Ronson might write a song. So, then the mink dance was tabled. And this sort of other kind of whole, other thing, this dream ballet sort of started to take form, which was amazing kind of evolution, and just kind of a testament to how Greta works. She just she's so precise about what she wants, yet at the same time she's able to sort of constantly keep evolving it and just take these massive swings, like a whole musical number suddenly at the end.
I heard she showed you guys specific classic musicals, is that right? To get just as reference points?
Yeah, we did a thing called Movie Church. So every Sunday morning at the Notting Hill Electric, because we were shooting in London, we would watch a movie that was in some way a reference for Greta. So whether we were watching like His Girl Friday for the pace at which they talk, or we'd watch The Red Shoes because it was a big inspiration for the color LUT that we ended up coming up with. Rodrigo came up with our cinematographer, and yeah, the big soundstage 50s soundstage musicals were a big reference. Also, just in how the aesthetic of the world, like the painted Sykes and everything, needed to feel tangible because it's a toy world, but Barbie was also created in the 50s, 1959. So it from the beginning, Greta wanted to anchor it in that way, and she loves those musicals.
Yeah. So tone must have been something that you guys talked about a lot, because I could see it being a tightrope. You know, if you guys are all in a different movie, this thing could be a disaster. But as Greta's put it, you know, you're doing the thing, but also subverting the thing. And so I just wonder, you know, how. I'm sure the other movie references were probably to some degree for that as well, to get on the same page. But do you remember conversations about, you know, just how big you should go with things, or how, you know, just or even watching maybe rushes and things to see that it was on track?
I don't know how it felt to you, but I remember when we were doing rehearsals beforehand, Ryan was like keeping it pretty low key, and I remember thinking like, it's gonna be pretty grounded like that. Okay, I'm gonna adjust the way I'm gonna do it. I was gonna go a bit bigger, but I'll go smaller. And then on day one, Ryan was just like 150%, and I was like, oh shit, okay, we're doing it. It was always about calibrating your performance with whoever you're on screen, because in this movie you really do go from moments of huge physical slapstick comedy, and it's ridiculous and absurd intentionally, and then, you know, 2 minutes later on screen you need people to be feeling that gut-wrenching, you know, emotional moment that they connect with, and to keep that all existing in the same film. Yeah, you just are trusting your director, who is a genius, and also calibrating. But yeah, I think we were both trying to like find at the beginning, and then about halfway through we're having like massive, you know, adult tantrums, throwing clothes off dream houses, and just being so ridiculous, and it was the most fun ever.
I think the truth is that there wasn't a comp. There was nothing you could point to say like, this is what that movie is, and that's the genius of Greta, to be able to bring a whole new vision and tone that encapsulated everything from fever dream ballet sequences to like really sobering, you know, emotional moments. And I felt in particular like I never knew what it was supposed to be. I just felt like Greta knew exactly what it was supposed to be, and that she would tell you, and like she could hear it. Sometimes she would just have you say the lines, and she would close her eyes and she would just listen for the cadence and the speed of the lines, and so I felt so comfortable and safe knowing that she knew exactly what it needed to be. And when it came to do the monologue, which we had spent months and months talking about, you know, I had expected the same thing. I expected to walk onto set and for her to be like giving me that kind of very precise cadence, you know, direction. And instead she went completely the other way and was like, I don't know, let's just do it and find out. And you know, to speak to what's your name again? Ryan? To speak to what Ryan was saying, is like, that's the incredible capacity of Greta as a director, is to like know exactly what it is and also be completely open to discovery and to finding it with you. And it was really a gift, and the faith went both ways. Like we had so much faith in her and she had so much faith in us.
Please.
Oh no,
I was just gonna say that I didn't. It's Brian, by the way.
Right.
And thank you. Brian Reynolds. No, but I was just Ken, so I didn't feel qualified to make any tonal decisions. But I just was trying to get Barbie to notice me in every scene.
Right.
And she never did, so I just had to keep escalating it to try and just get her to even get Margot to look at me in a scene or something, and she wouldn't.
Well, let's dive in a little bit more to some of the specifics of your performances. Margot, I think the thing that it's even more appreciable on like second viewing. So for so many of you guys, you're here, you're just enjoying the movie. The second time, I noticed more and more of the things that you guys are doing to, I think, shade these the nuances. And Margot, what's amazing is the transition from her being a doll to being a human is done, it seems like, in very subtle steps along the way with, voice, posture, words that she's using, all of that. So I wanted to ask you if you can talk about doing that, especially as a reminder to folks who are here who I guess are not actors. Like, you're not shooting in sequence, so I'm assuming you have to map that all out. So take us into that process.
Thank you for noticing, or not noticing on the first watch. That was definitely, I did want there to be an evolution with the character. I wanted her to start off, obviously, as a doll and obviously as a human, but I thought I thought she needed to start off very, very certain and very uncertain, but in a great way. And so I, worked closely with Jacqueline Duran, our costume designer, and Ivana, our hair and makeup artist, to make sure that at the beginning she was dressing in very, block colors with geometric patterns. Her hair was big, voluminous Barbie hair, and we had like 9 wigs, so it would slowly get smaller, smaller, smaller until by the end it's a little more human-like. And likewise with the clothes, the fabrics would get softer and softer until they were a little more vulnerable, like you would be as a human, but still feminine. I didn't want her to get to the end and like in that last scene suddenly be like not a girly girl anymore. I think she's always going to be a girly girl, but I wanted there to be an element of like human fragility and vulnerability in a really beautiful way. And I wanted there to be an uncertainty in the way that she moved and spoke, and it went from being very definitive and intentional, and she's never had a second thought. She's never had to second guess anything at the beginning of the movie, and by the end she does. So she does hesitate when she talks and stutters and stumbles on her words and doesn't know what to say. But at the beginning it's very much like, I'm having a dance party, there's going to be bespoke choreography, you should come by. It's always very like, certain, and then the uncertainty of life kind of is reflected in how she starts. That's what I was going for. I don't know if any of that tracks, but that was the idea.
I just want to add that I had the opportunity a few times in the hair and makeup trailer to just get a glimpse of Margot's script. And it's like, not since like Da Vinci's notebooks. Has there been more? I mean, there were so many little notes and drawings and graphs, and I was like, how much thought have you put into this? This is incredible. I've never seen a script quite like that. It should be in a museum somewhere. The Academy Museum.
Ryan, with Ken pre and post experiencing the human world, did you I guess, can you talk about your own version of that, just how you were going to play the character differently before and after? I think there clearly, his personality changes, but that means your performance changed.
Yeah, it was, well, we didn't shoot the real world stuff until the end, which I'm kind of glad, because I had kenned privately, on stages, but when you ken publicly, it's a whole other thing. And I was glad it was the end, because I know that I could have come back and shot more after kenning publicly. I needed some time to regroup.
That's great. America, you referenced the monologue, which everybody goes nuts about every time it's played. It doesn't mean it's correct, but I believe that it is, that you and Greta developed that together, that there's things drawn from your own experiences. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, no. The answer is no.
Okay.
That's not correct. The words on the page were always the words on the page. Like, we maybe added one line and took away like a couple prepositions, but the words, like the words you hear are the words that Greta and Noah, but probably Greta, wrote. And we spent months. I mean, talking about Gloria as a whole, which obviously was, her journey was leading up to that moment of expression for her and for the Barbies. And we went back and forth and shared like everything. I mean, Greta's knowledge of film is so incredible. I mean, she's an encyclopedia, and she'll reference everything from like, you know, silent films and Polish DPs to like Paw Patrol. You know, she's like, you know that scene in Paw Patrol? I'm like, no. But she's like, there's this shot, you know, and she's such a lover, and like also has like a mind that's like a vault, you know, and she'd say, watch Close Encounters for like this relationship, and watch Purple Rose of Cairo for like for this brightness in her eyes, you know, and so it was so amazing to get to develop just a sense. It was really just about an essence and a sense of what that monologue meant and held. And then of course we were seeing it pop up all around us in the culture, between, you know, TV shows and articles and women in Congress after Roe v. Wade had been reversed, and like the essence of that monologue was unavoidable in the world and in the culture. And so we just continued to, you know, share the things that related to it. And so in that way, we grew it together. And when we were on set, it was like, it's like we just felt that we knew what we were doing. But in terms of the words, those words were her. The only line that wasn't there that came out of our conversations was the like, always be grateful line, which was the line that we added.
You remember how many takes that was?
I mean, it felt like a million takes.
She did that so many times, and she did it at that level that you see on screen. She did it like that every time, and she had clean crying. I was crying the whole time. The ADs came up and tapped me on the shoulder and were like, "You don't need to cry, you're off camera." And I was like, "I'm not trying to cry." She's making me cry. It's so, every time felt like the first time.
That's great. And just to bring up two other scenes that a lot of people find very moving. Greta said that one of them, people were at one point asking her, "What, do we really need this?" And she's like, "This is why I'm doing the movie." That's the scene at the bus stop with the older lady, played by the great costume designer Anne Roth, in case people didn't realize that. That's who it is. And then also you and Ray Perlman in the bowels of Mattel. Anything you want to say about the importance of those scenes, Margot?
Yeah, the bus stop scene, by the way, the craziest thing, Anne Roth designed the costumes for Midnight Cowboy, which Ryan's costume in that scene is very much Midnight Cowboy. It was the wildest thing. I was like, oh, this is, you remember that? It was wild. And
It's also very BTS.
It was kind of great that she's not an actor, and actually in the there's like a blooper reel thing that we have that when we played it on IMAX you could see it, but otherwise you can't see it. But she did her line and she turned, she's like, was that good? And Greta was like, no, Greta goes, that was great. And she was like, I'll decide. She's just that person. I remember when we were talking about who we get to play that old lady on the bench. Greta's like, I want it to be someone who has so much character, who's, you know, just lived a life and is funny and is, you know, not just like a sweet little old lady. But anyways, Anne was perfect for that scene. And yes, that scene doesn't necessarily move the plot along, but it makes the movie. I mean, it's like Greta said, that it's the reason to make the movie is to have moments like that, and have Barbie see age for the first time and say that it's beautiful is a really sweet moment. And then working with Rhea Perlman was just, I mean, wild. I mean, it's Matilda's mom. I'm very excited.
So for all of you, can you take us back to opening weekend as you start to hear about or see the numbers of sales, the reviews, the reactions on social and everywhere else? I mean, you've all been a part of very big, successful projects, but I can't imagine there's ever been anything quite like this. And so be curious how you processed it and why you think, aside from being a very good movie, but why you think it tapped such a chord with people.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was like I live in New York City, and it was like the Thursday before the Friday. I guess movies come out on Thursdays now. I'm so confused. But I started seeing like groups of people in pink on the subway. And I was like, is that about Barbie? like, are people in pink for Barbie? And they were. And I remember one of my best friends texting me from a movie theater. She said, I just went and saw like a 2 p.m. screening on Thursday. It was packed. Everyone was in pink. And when everyone sat in their seats till the credits ended, and when the lights came up, everyone was wiping tears away. And I think what was so exciting about that weekend was that there was so much hype and excitement about how fun the world was, but what was great about like opening the present was that no one really knew what it was. No one really knew what the story was about and what it was saying, and that it would make them feel that way. And so it felt like a surprise, which seems like a really hard thing to pull off when like everyone was already like oversaturated with Barbie at that point. So that was all really exciting.
Ava and I went camping with the kids on opening weekend, so we came out of the woods into a different situation than we walked in. But I don't know. It's hard to say why. I think for a lot of reasons. But it was interesting that at that time when it came out, it was just, and there still is, but there was a lot of conversation around like AI generated content. And it just kind of struck me that this is a movie that AI could never make. It's such only Greta Gerwig could make this movie, and Margot and America. It's such a human film, and it also it's in keeping. I think it's Greta in the sense that she's. The way that we all felt making the movie, I think everyone felt watching the movie, which is just, it's so inclusive. Everyone is invited, and there's really something for everyone, and that's just what it's like to work with her. And I watched, and I watched the crew. I watched it just from my own limited perspective. I watched all the guys on the crew. Margot had implemented a pink day, where if you didn't wear pink, you were fined, and it was given to charity. And but like I watched all these guys, like they wanted to wear pink, and they would show up very proudly wearing it, and they were like soldiers in like serving the queen. They were like knights in pink armor, and they wanted to serve them. They were so in awe of what they were creating, and just wanted to pay their respects. And I think I just sort of, it started in that small way on set, and it just kept growing and growing and just spread out to the world.
Barbie Queen, tell us your perspective.
No, I mean everything they said, and I agree that the color pink itself became this unifying factor, and also you knew exactly, I don't know, it's like everyone had the same thing when they left the house. They were going for the same reason, and it was such a unifying thing. And I went around the theaters on opening weekend with a mask and a hat, and we were just checking like levels and volume and stuff like that, but also just wanted to feel the vibe and hear everyone's reactions. And I just couldn't believe how the color pink unified everyone despite age and gender and race and opinions. It's like everyone came together and was a part of this thing together. And I haven't felt that in a movie theater, I don't think ever on this level in my entire life. It was really, really, really special. And then I would hide in the bathrooms and wait for to hear what people were saying about it. I would sit in a cubicle and I was like, I'm gonna chatter away about it. Or I would like walk behind a group of teenage dudes, just so I'm like, I want to know what they're saying about the movie. And actually, a great story. I was in a pub in the middle of Scotland, maybe a month after the movie came out, and a bachelor party of dudes were at a table, and they didn't know I was sitting next. I had my back to them. They didn't know I was sitting there, but they discussed the Barbie movie for like half an hour. It was incredible, and some of them had seen it and some others hadn't, and other people one dude at the table was like he's like, I'm not seeing a Barbie movie, why would I do that? Another dude was like, dude, don't you want to be a part of culture? It's a cultural moment. Like, I want to be a part of culture. And I listened to this whole debate, and then another guy piped up and he's like, I've actually seen it. And everyone's like, you've seen it too? And they talked about why they thought it mattered, and it was such a fascinating conversation to listen to, because it wasn't, performative. They didn't know I was there or whatever, but to see the way it affected people, that that you could just, no algorithm could tell you that group of guys were going to go see the Barbie movie, and they did. And of course, when I walked out, I stopped by the table.
I was hoping.
I was like, thank you so much for seeing the Barbie movie. That face was, I think it took a whole minute for their brains to catch up and be like, oh, whoa.
By the way, hiding and eavesdropping in a bathroom is something that only Margot Robbie can do. No one else can do that.
One last question, which I'm sure is premature and possibly annoying, but I'm out of curiosity. When you have something that is this well received, the obvious question is this the end of the story, or could there be more with you guys involved?
Greta said this too, but I mean, we really put, and I hope it feels this way, we put everything into this movie. Like, Greta, there was no holding back for part 2, part 3. Like, it was, we made this movie until like the tanks were empty. And I can't imagine what else it could be beyond this, and it was never designed to be a trilogy or whatever. It was, this is it. And look, never say never. I of course, who am I to say? But all I know is that we put everything into this movie. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for making the time.